specifics of this contract. I'll give you a project overview, and then the overview of the scope of the contract. We'll take you through the specific procurement requirements and some details on the pre-bid site visit that is going to be held tomorrow. Then at the end of the session, we will have a question and answer slot where you'll raise your questions and we will respond. Otherwise, we can send a clarification responding to your request, your question. And then at the end, we will close. My name is Makananelo Khumalo. I am the functional manager for the project management unit, and I am responsible for environmental, social, and public health programs within phase 2. My colleague will introduce himself when he comes on board. His name is Eddie Barense. I will take you through some administrative issues. We are having this meeting as an MS Teams live event, and the recording for this meeting will be posted on the LHDA website, and anyone can have access to that. We are going to have a pre-bid site visit tomorrow, and we will give you the details of that later on. Otherwise, there is a chat function on MS Teams where you are expected to register. Please go there, give us your name, your email address, and the company that you are representing so that we can be able to get hold of you. Please use the chat function to do that. As I indicated, there will be a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. The participants do not have a speaking function in this meeting. So please type all your questions on the chat function of this meeting so that we can be able to respond to them. However, we will also, after this meeting, compile all the list of questions and respond to each and every one of them formally, so that everyone can have access to those. Those will be posted in the LHDA website. You may all be aware, or some of you may be aware of the incidences of corruption that occurred in phase 1, where a number of people were implicated in some corrupt activities. So as phase 2, we are trying everything that we can to make sure that doesn't happen. We have developed an anti-corruption policy which guides all the activities under the project, and each person needs to declare a conflict of interest so that we can be able to determine if there is such a conflict of interest or not. What we are trying to do here is really just to make sure that we are transparent. If you are related to anyone within the project, or if you are close friends with people in the project, you need to declare that so that a determination can be made on whether there is conflict or not. And we are not saying people should not be involved in the project if they are friends or close relatives, but we are saying declare that so that a determination can be made so that you can continue being part of this process. The proposal submission includes a conflict of interest declaration, which each bidder needs to fill as part of the document to be submitted to LHDA. For tomorrow's site visit, I will take you through some health and safety issues. We are recommending that you use a 4x4 vehicle which is in good condition, and please do drive defensively in the roads on the roads that we'll be traveling on tomorrow, because most of the roads are in very poor conditions, especially now after the heavy rains that we have been experiencing. There are potholes and narrow pavements. We will be meeting at the top of the Modem Pass, and that road has a very steep gradient and sharp bends. So you just need to be careful as you are driving up there. Last week we went to site and we experienced, if I may say, all seasons. It was raining heavily. At some point it was snowing. We experienced some mist. And so tomorrow when you go up to site, come prepared, because you never know what will happen. We have quite a diverse range of the people who use the roads and the animals as well. We have school children that cross the road on many occasions, and we also have head of animals that are seen just being in the road. So please drive carefully so that we don't cause any accidents as we go to site and back tomorrow. The pictures are just showing you what you are likely to come across tomorrow. Taking you through the LHWP overview. For some of you who had attended the earlier two sessions, you will find this repetitive, but please bear with us, since we needed to have all the sessions as independent as possible, so that people who attend just one will have all the information that they require. So the main reason why we are implementing this project is so that at the end of the day, there will be supply of water to Gauteng province in South Africa. So in 1986, there was a treaty signed between the Lesotho government and the South African government, which gave rise to the commencement of the Lesotho Highlands Water Project, phase 1, and in 2011, an agreement was signed between the two countries to make way for commencement of construction of phase 2. So as I indicated, the project is governed both by the government of Lesotho and the government of South Africa. So a body has been established that oversees the implementation of the project. This body is called the Lesotho Highlands Water Commission. So there are representatives from the two governments who sit in the commission and oversee the implementation of the project. We have two administrative bodies that have been established in each country, the TCTA, which is in South Africa, and then the Lesotho Highlands Development Authority, which is a Lesotho-based organization. So within the Lesotho Highlands Development Authority, there is a board that governs the affairs of the project. And the board has quite a number of subcommittees, and the subcommittee that is responsible for overseeing the implementation of phase 2 is the technical subcommittee. Under the LHDA board, then we have LHDA, which I have mentioned that it is responsible for implementing the project within Lesotho. And a unit has been formed within LHDA, which is the project management unit, where Eddie and myself sit, and most of the people that are from LHDA that are in this call. That project management unit has been engaged to oversee the implementation of phase 2. And it's a unit that is made up of different specialists, from engineers, contract specialists, procurement specialists, environmental and social specialists, as well as finance and administration specialists. We also have a panel of environmental and engineering experts, which are engaged to advise the LHDA in the implementation of the project. We have engaged consultants and supervising engineers that oversee construction and are responsible for engaging contractors for construction of different components of the project. We also have interaction and coordination with different stakeholders, including the government of Lesotho, the non-governmental organizations, and the communities that we are working within. So within LHDA, we have a chief executive officer who is the head of the authority, and then there's the chief operating officer and different divisional managers. Of interest in this project, the hydropower component is the divisional manager for phase 2, that then below him we have different managers. Budihadi operations branch manager Gerard Mokoni, who is based in Tokweni in Mokotong, who oversees the phase 2 affairs on site. And then we have an executive manager who is the overseer for the project management unit. And then lastly, yet to be engaged is a branch manager who is going to oversee the hydropower component of the project. Lesotho is within South Africa, and most of the water that is being captured in the different catchments of the country is usually so we have 2 tributaries within the country, and then the Caledon, and then the Orange Silk River. And as you may be aware, all of this ultimately goes into the ocean. But since, as I indicated, there was a need to transfer water to South Africa, then there are quite a number of dams that have been already constructed, and one that is just about to be started, which is the Budihadi Dam. That those dams are meant to collect the water that can be then transferred into South Africa through tunnels. So phase 1 of the Lesotho Highlands Water Project included the construction of Katse Dam, and phase 1B was the construction of the Mohale Dam. They said tunnel that connects the Mohale Dam to the Katse Dam, and then ultimately a tunnel from Katse Dam all the way that takes the water all the way to South Africa. And then a hydropower scheme currently at Muela. Those aspects are part of phase 1 of the project. So for phase 2, we have recently awarded contracts for a contractor to construct Budihadi Dam as well as the Budihadi Tunnel as part of phase 2. So the Oxbow hydropower scheme is part of the phase 2 of the project, which is going to be constructed at Oxbow, located in Butabuti. The phase 2 program is divided into what we call the water transfer component and then the hydropower component. The water transfer component is currently underway. We have had environmental and social and public health baseline studies. We did environmental and social impact assessments. We have developed environmental and social management plans and action plans that emanated from those. We are now in the process of implementing those different plans. We have resettlement action plans, public health action plans, livelihood restoration plans, and social development master plans, and all the different types of action plans that we have been developing and are implementing. As part of the advanced infrastructure component, there have been roads constructed. We will be constructing bridges. Power lines have been erected, telecommunications, housing, different types of buildings, as part of the advanced infrastructure. Some of these components have already been completed, but some are still ongoing. The main works for water transfer include construction of a 165-meter high dam and a saddle dam, which is 50 meters high, as well as the transfer tunnel that takes water from the Pudihadi Dam all the way to Katsi Dam. So as I indicated earlier, the dam and tunnel contracts have just recently been awarded, and construction will commence early next year. Just for the slide is just showing what I have already indicated. On the right-hand side, we have the Pudihadi Dam. You can see where the dam is going to be located on the red structure that is shown on the, it is showing it now. And then we are going to construct a 38-kilometer tunnel from Pudihadi all the way to Katsi. And then there are associated infrastructure, as I indicated, the roads, the power line, and all the other related infrastructure. For the Oxbow hydropower component of phase 2, we are going to do pretty much the same as we did for the water transfer component. And we are at the stage where we are going to undertake environmental and social impact assessments. We are going to be developing resettlement action plans, and we have had similar meetings this morning with the supervising engineering prospective bidders, as well as the ESIA prospective bidders. And then this is the last one where we are talking to the resettlement action plan prospective bidders. So there's going to be temporary and permanent infrastructure constructed, similar to what we have in underwater transfer. There are quarries and site establishment areas that have been identified, but the REP consultant, the ESIA consultant, and the supervising engineer will be working together to identify or to optimize the location of these different components. Eddie will go through the specifics of this contract, but for the hydropower component, there is going to be we are going to harvest water from the upper catchment of the Madibamatsu River. And then this the Madibamatsu River currently flows south into the Katse Reservoir. So just before we're going to harvest water upstream of the current Katse Reservoir. And then there's going to be a construction of a dam, as I indicated, that's approximately 100 meters high. And then there are going to be road and services, construction of roads and services. There's a gated intake structure and a 6.6 kilometer long head race tunnel and other associated infrastructure, which Eddie will talk to at a later stage. And I'm going to hand over now to Eddie for him to go through the specifics of the contract. Thank you very much. Over to you, Eddie.
May, do you want me to do the mitigation slides as well? I think there are 2 or 3 of them. Or do you just want to?
Okay.
Sorry.
My network was playing games on me. I wasn't seeing the slides anymore. Okay. As I have already indicated, we have different components under this hydropower scheme. So we need to make sure that we mitigate the environmental and social impacts on the environment and people that we are going to be affecting. As I indicated, we've already held a similar meeting with the prospective bidders for the ESIAs, and an environmental management plan will be developed and adopted into the specifications for the construction contracts. The ESIA will be submitted to the Department of Environment, who will issue a record of decision. And then the conditions of that record of decision will form part of what the contractors need to be implementing as they go on about the construction of the different components of the scheme. And then the construction supervision will also ensure, we have made sure that the engineering consultant has provided staff that will be able to supervise compliance with both the international best practice as well as the national legislation, including the ESIAs and the EMPs that would have been produced. On the community front, the main issue here is acquisition of land, which goes together with compensation of that land and resettlement of the affected households and communities. So as I indicated, the 3 consultants will be working together to make sure that we optimize the location of the different components of the scheme. As I indicated earlier, we have developed quite a number of guiding documents that guide on land access issues, public relations, how we communicate with the different stakeholders. We make sure that before we hand over land to our different contractors, we have already acquired the land and compensated the affected people. And we have programs that address specifically the community impacts, including the livelihood restoration and social development aspects that I have already mentioned. Another big component that we manage as part of the project is the labor recruitment. We have developed documents, a guideline document that guides the different service providers on how to recruit labor, both skilled and unskilled labor, so that we are able to things that can emanate from the surrounding communities. And there's also another aspect of managing local service providers, and we have a guideline for procurement of goods and services, which clearly indicates how the local service providers need to be integrated into this whole project so that they can benefit as well. Thank you, Eddie. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Philomelo, and good day, everyone, and thank you for joining. What I'm going to do is just first take you through a very brief overview of the actual footprint of the hydropower scheme, and then I'll discuss the scope of work, which is in section 3 of the bid document. And then we will just run through some instructions to bidders to give you some guidance. So some of those slides are going to be a bit repetitive, but we believe it's good that you understand what you need to focus on in order to have a bid that will go through the entire evaluation process. So before we get to the actual scope of work, just a summary. Some of these things I don't fully also understand what they mean, and I'm sure you are not that interested in it either. But essentially, there's going to be a dam of approximately 100-meter high. It will either be RCC or CFRD. Roads and services will be required to be diverted. I'll show you a map soon to show you where that will occur, especially the existing A1 road on the way to Mokhotlong. There will be a gated power intake, a head race tunnel of nearly 7 kilometers long, portal valve house, and then a 3.2 kilometer long steel penstock, which currently is going to be above ground, not below ground, not below surface. There is going to be a powerhouse at Malefilwani, and there's potentially going to be a second powerhouse closer to Mwela. The Nkwe powerhouse has not been included in the RFP. We will issue an addendum to incorporate the potential Nkwe powerhouse as well. We will then, based on that, update, if required, the estimated impact in terms of land acquisition and relocation, so that all of the bidders bid on one single understanding of what the potential impact would be. So you can expect an addendum soon on the additional powerhouse that may be incorporated. Currently, there is talk of a double 132 kV transmission line from each power station to the new Mwela substation, approximately 6 kilometers direct length. I know that the double transmission line is a requirement on the Eskom South African side. Whether it will eventually be incorporated within Lesotho, that the preliminary design and detailed design will tell us. But certainly there will be a 132 kV line at least from each of the power stations, if both are constructed, to the new Mwela substation. Now, for transmission lines, what we do on the project, the 132 kV lines, for example, have a 31-meter servitude. We register all of the private properties within that servitude. If there's any housing involved or within that servitude, they've got to be relocated, and other assets are compensated so that the servitude can be established. And for cultivation land, we initially acquire the land on a temporary basis to allow the construction of the power line, and then thereafter we apply a devaluation compensation. But we'll get to that a bit later. There's a diversion tunnel and a 4.2 kilometer transfer tunnel that will then discharge to Mwela Reservoir. There's going to be construction infrastructure like access roads. I'll show you on the map the current plans for where these access roads will be. There will be quarries, plant yards or work areas, and accommodation for labour. There will obviously also be a requirement for permanent infrastructure for operations and maintenance, including permanent utilities and services. I hope you can make this out. This is the dam over here. The dam wall is in this area here. These little grey blocks you see over here are mainly quarries, etc. These ones up here are two lodges. So at the headwaters of the proposed Oxbow Dam is the Oxbow Lodge. It is a lodge that is currently in operation, and it's been in operation for many years, in fact. And then there's another lodge which is currently still under construction. So it's not in operation, but the construction is quite far advanced. And then the the tunnel will run from here, and then here will be the portion where the penstock over here. And in this downstream area, there will be a substation over here. Currently, that's the plan. The powerhouse will be over here. Sorry, I hope you can see what I'm showing. Power is going to be here. Camps are proposed in this area as well as up here, and further on as well. where camps are being proposed. If you look carefully, you will see a red line running all the way like that. That's the A1 that eventually climbs up Moteng Pass, and this is the top of Moteng Pass, and where we'll meet tomorrow for the site visit. As you go down the road, you will see this green line running like that. That is a proposed access road to some of the works areas over here. There is currently another proposed access road from the top of Moteng Pass running all along like that up to the construction site where the dam wall will be. In the downstream area of the A1 is another green line that you can see over here. It is an existing village track, but clearly, if you know, with all these developments that may occur over here, this road will have to be substantially upgraded. So the potential impact is essentially over here. The significant social impact is clearly over here, somewhat over here in terms of land acquisition, and then up here it is mainly going to be those two lodges, as well as the rangeland that will be affected here. Most of this up here is actually cattle post areas. So these are areas that can only be utilized under direction of the relevant principal chiefs, etc. Okay, let me just go to the next one. This is a bit of detail that shows you the Oxbow Dam, the dam site over there, the intake with the headrace tunnel going down here. Here you can see the A1 road coming from Moteng Pass and then on its way to Mogotlong. And you can see this area here of the A1 road will be submerged. So the current proposal is to divert the A1 along that green line as indicated there. In the downstream area, I'm not going to go into detail on this, but you can see the headrace tunnel coming down here. Eventually you find the penstock, and over here is the proposed Marifilwani powerhouse substation. That access road I spoke about coming off the A1, the transfer weir, and then the transfer tunnel that will run to Muela. The Nkwe powerhouse, which is also being considered, is in this vicinity over here. Okay, so essentially what happens on projects like this, we normally, generally we will have a confirmed footprint, and then a resettlement consultant is called in to do the resettlement planning, and in many cases assist to oversee the implementation. We're following a very similar approach, but I just want to emphasize, which I'll emphasize in subsequent slides as well, and as Makananelo has indicated, the EIA consultant, the engineering consultant, and this resettlement consultant, in fact, they're going to work together specifically during the preliminary design stage for the engineering works, where both the ESIA and the resettlement consultant will coordinate with the engineering consultant to find the best final configuration for the scheme. And that would include minimizing physical relocation to the extent possible, etc. So when we get to the stages and the tasks that I'll run through, I just want you to keep that in the back of your mind, and then I will confirm how you should proceed to submit your bid. Okay, so currently there are definitely the two lodges that will be relocated. At the downstream area where the access road of the A1 runs to the new substation and the powerhouse, there potentially is going to be some impact on possibly 2 to 3 small businesses. We will hopefully be able to show you those tomorrow. Current estimates based on the current footprints is that up to 15 homesteads will have to be relocated. Taking account of the fact that some of the, call it the temporary specifically the temporary footprints for camps, etc., could be relocated wherever possible or moved wherever possible to minimize that impact. But at the moment, we are working on 15 homesteads to be relocated. Cultivation land, approximately 50 hectares of land to be permanently acquired, and an additional 10 hectares of land, cultivation land within the transmission line servitudes. In other words, the 130 kV lines that I spoke about earlier on. There is a distinct possibility that some other private assets will be affected, especially trees, thickets, as well as potentially homestead graves or small burial grounds. And then a significant impact as well is the rangeland, especially at the top, where the dam will be flooding a substantial area of grazing land available to the communities. The entitlements for these impacts are all identified and specified in the compensation policy. The policy is available on the LHDA website. We recently updated and revised that policy. It was approved recently by our principals. So within the next few days, I think before the end of the week, the revised policy will be uploaded. And I strongly advise that you go to the LHDA site and website and download the compensation policy. It will be very useful for you to give you a sense of what the context is in which you will work. But essentially, the policy defines a range of entitlements, assets, homestead assets, business properties, agricultural land, trees and thickets, a range of other private and communal properties, as well as various allowances that are made available to affected families and entities. Importantly, for LHDA, for the project, we have a number of approved compensation rates. So they cover things like a square meter rate for replacement housing, compensation for trees, agricultural land, whatever. So you as the bidders do not have to worry about going to need to do valuation of properties and then determine the compensation amount. There are some exceptions, specifically the two commercial properties, the two lodges, one of which admittedly is not yet in operation. For the valuation of those commercial enterprises, we need to follow the regulations of the Land Act, which basically specifies that an odd number of valuers need to be appointed, and as far as I remember, compensated by or reimbursed by the proponent, LHDA in this instance, to undertake the valuations of commercial properties. But otherwise, all other assets, we have approved compensation rates available. Okay, essentially, the overview is a stage 1, which is the resettlement planning, and then a stage 2, which is the resettlement implementation. Under stage 1, and I'm going to go into a bit of detail for each of these stages. Under stage 1, the key thing, really, the key activity is to do the registration of all affected assets, including confirming ownership. We call those affected people beneficiaries. That's the language we use in LHDA. So a key activity in stage 1 is to accurately record each and every affected asset for our approval, client approval, and eventually then the compensation will kick in. Flowing from that, a key activity under stage 1 is a resettlement action plan that we need prepared and approved, as well as a livelihood restoration plan. Under stage 2, it will proceed where there are any physical relocation to take place. So, for example, if we can minimize or completely avoid relocating homesteads, stage 2 would become a fairly minor activity. It will involve supervising and managing the valuation of the 2 commercial properties. It may involve appointment of service providers to assist with the exhumation and reburial of graves, etc. At this stage, we do not have an absolute clear footprint that can indicate, for example, how many graves will be affected and need to be relocated. So I think it's important that we realize that the scope may be amended depending on possible realignments or changes to the scheme footprint. Importantly, though, you need to ensure that you put your bid in based on the estimate of the impact that we gave you in the RFP, as well as in any subsequent addenda that we will issue. We need a solid basis from which to compare. So you all will use those figures that we've provided you. Okay, stage 1, you will see from the RFP, section 3 specifically, I think there are about 14 or 15 tasks running from stage 1 up to stage 2. Stage 1 will essentially commence with an inception report, and you will be required to prepare a report based on extensive site investigations, interactions with stakeholders, local authorities, etc., and then refine what you will be doing based on your original proposal. And that approval process will then, once the inception report is approved, you then commence with your other activities. Stakeholder engagement is obviously a key activity that runs for the duration of your planning exercise. We need to make sure that affected people are continuously and effectively kept informed of what is happening. And by the way, they also participate in task 3, which is the asset registration and verification component. Now, when you put together your bid, you tell us what you are going to do. We tell you what must be done, but you tell us how you believe it should be done. There are a couple of exceptions. Under the asset registration and verification, LHDA has a very specific, well-developed over many years, asset registration procedure. So there's a procedure in place. There are forms that have been developed. You will utilize those forms. You are not going to come, apart from your earlier, your own identifying affected portions of land, whatever, transect, walks, etc. Once you do the asset registration, you utilize the forms that we will provide to you. So those forms, it's not negotiable. You've got to use them, which is why we are going to have you do a pilot study so that we together can make sure you understand how the asset registration process works on this project. After that pilot study, you will do a full asset registration program. And obviously, as I said earlier on, the 2 lodges will need to be valued as per the Land Act. You are also, as task 4, you will be required to do a socio-economic survey of all affected households. And again, here we have developed with our consultants, RAP consultants on Purihari and the associated advanced infrastructure. We've actually developed a detailed questionnaire that you will utilize under task 4. You will not use your own questionnaire. We will provide this questionnaire to you that you will utilize. Sorry, Mema Canelo, I see a hand being raised. I think at this stage, we're not taking any voice calls, so I'm not sure, is it Zare? If you can maybe lower your hand, and then we can, during the Q&A, we can answer your questions. Task 5 is your data management system. Again, LHDA has a compensation or asset registration and compensation system called Flowcentric that is a complicated very detailed program that they utilize all over for all the phases. So when you submit documentation to us, it will have to be in a format that is compatible to uploading it into FlowCentric, as well as hard copy files. You are required, however, to have obviously your own data management system to run your asset verification, asset registration and verification, and your socioeconomic survey. You need a data management system to manage that. And I would imagine it would be something like MS Access, but it's up to you to propose what system you are going to utilize. I'm just very briefly going to run through this. Probably you won't be even able to read some of the finer print, but generally there are 3 steps. It's the registering the assets, preparing compensation options where it's applicable, and then doing a compensation offer, which is then presented to the affected owners, and they sign off, and the compensation process can kick in. The blue, what do you call these things? I can't remember now. The blue diagonals are essentially where the consultant will be involved, and the green ones are really where LHDA takes over, as it were. So as step 1, you will identify affected owners and assets using whatever method you find most useful. You will do a cadastral survey and an asset and beneficiary registration process. These 2 run together, but you can't really do the asset registration until you've done your cadastral survey. So that one needs to be done, the cadastral survey, before you go to your asset registration. You will see that we've got here an asset inventory form. It's an LHDA form, asset verification form. It's an LHDA form. There are numerous other supporting forms or documents we've prepared that is stamped and signed by the chiefs and whomever. And those are forms that you will be required to use, the successful bidder will be required to use. Once we have approved all your asset registration data, you then submit the data to upload into FlowCentric. And I'm not going to go into detail now, but you submit that to us in both electronic and hard copy format. We as LHDA will do the uploading. You are not involved in doing any uploading. Once we've uploaded that, we will then be able to generate compensation options for assets where there is a range of options available. We will make that available to the consultant, who will then go and interact with the affected owners so that they can decide which of the options they want to go for, lump sum payment or annual cash payment, etc. Once that has been done, LHDA will prepare a compensation office for the affected people. The consultant will assist with logistical arrangements, but LHDA, as the proponent, will make the compensation offer available to the people. It's their role to do that. You will also see on the right-hand side, you will do the household survey. You collect that, you store it in whatever database. Again, I think it's probably an MS Access type database. Eventually, that is handed over to us, the client, and we keep that as a document for future monitoring, or data for future monitoring, etc. Okay, that was up to, let me just go back up to task 5. Task 6 is essentially the compensation planning exercise. And if there is going to be any physical relocation, this task will look at where people are going to be relocated, what their preferences are, planning relocation sites. It might be infill relocation, or it may be developing of a completely new village, hopefully not. Replacement housing options. There are floor plans available. So from the side of this contract, there is no need to go and prepare new house plans. We've got a range of house plans available, covering all the different types of housing that may be affected. And then you do your compensation and relocation planning. Task 7 and Task 8, and Task 11, which I'll come to now. Task 7 is community mitigation measures, and there's an element of livelihood restoration involved there as well. So you will develop measures for the loss of rangeland. That impact is done in a way through a GIS assessment. So it's not that you will be counting how many ever useful patches of useful grass, etc. there are. You do a GIS analysis, and we have compensation rates available to assist in determining what the loss per community for rangeland will be. And then any other measures that you feel are required to mitigate impacts on communities. We've got concept livelihood restoration plans available from the Purihari resettlement consultant. The successful bidder will be handed over those concept plans upon appointment. Again, if there is a need to relocate affected graves, that will be covered under Task 8, where the planning for relocating those graves will take place. And then Task 9 will cover any tender requirements and procurement of service providers, if needed. For example, service providers to relocate affected graves. Task 10 and 11, essentially key deliverables in terms of documentation that we need, the resettlement action plan, which will build on all the previous information you've collected, and then the livelihood restoration plan. This will be informed by the LHDA's livelihood restoration framework, as well as the compensation policy, and clearly needs to be identified in consultation with affected households and communities. Again, the concept plans that will be handed over to the successful bidder will help to give context to moving that forward. Important to note that under this contract, you only do the planning of the initiative, not implementation. Implementation will come later as a separate contract. And then number 12, task 12 is your contract management and administration. There's a very strict reporting regime on this contract or within LHDA. You will be required to do monthly progress meetings, progress reports, risk management, quality management, time management, cost control, resource management. It is a significant management activity and administration requirement that you need to take account of. Under stage 2, task 13 will continue the stakeholder engagement program into the implementation phase. And task 14, the typical implementation activities that you may have to oversee will be physical relocation of homesteads or businesses and businesses, relocation of affected graves or burial sites, and then administration of the contracts of the service providers appointed to implement aspects of the resettlement plan, the resettlement program. Task 15 is your ongoing contract management and administration, and task 16 is the completion report and close out. So task 16 essentially pulls together everything that has been done under the contract, and it's approved and signed off as an accurate record of what took place. Staffing and coordination, we've specified 5 key staff and a number of technical support staff. I think you can go and check, if you haven't already, what additional technical support staff we think you require, and you may, of course, nominate other support staff as necessary. The key staff form the basis, together with a number of other components of the evaluation under section 9. Those 5 key staff, from the team leader up to the civil engineer, together make up 55 points of the 100 points under the technical proposals and the way we are going to evaluate them. So you've got to look at these positions very carefully. We'll come back to the CVs later on. Technical support staff, as I said, is specified in the TOR, and you can indicate other support staff that you require. In your contract, I think it is under section 3.12, we are going to allocate 2 young professionals in training to this particular contract for skills development. Please read section 3.1.2 carefully. You will see that the client, being LHDA, carries the salary for salaries for these YPs, but there are other aspects of their deployment on this contract that is covered or carried by the successful consultant. So please look at that and make sure you have accommodated that properly in your financial proposal. Again, just to highlight close liaison and coordination with other consultants, especially the engineering and ESIA consultants, and then of course other local authorities, community councils, chiefs, etc. Okay, now we come to the bit that you might find a bit boring, but please bear with us, because this is really to help you to make sure you are putting in a bit that is compliant. And you know, we speak of, there are many occasions where, you know, an otherwise good bid fails to go through because of one key thing that the bidder does not do. So really, this is very important. You know, be very careful in how you put together your bid. Okay, just to start, the background to this is really Article 10 of the Phase 2 agreement, which states that the process shall foster competitiveness, transparency, cost effectiveness, and quality. Secondly, preference shall be given to supplier of goods and services, firstly in Lesotho, then South Africa, then SADC member states, and then internationally in that order. Joint ventures shall be formed on a voluntary basis if there's a requirement for a joint venture. And then in the adjudication of the bids, preference margins may be considered for companies, including joint ventures registered in Lesotho and in South Africa, essentially to encourage capacity building and economic growth in the 2 countries. So it's important that you understand this is the context within which all bids are going to be have to be prepared and will be evaluated against. The sections of the RFP, I'm sure most of you are familiar with this. Fairly standard FIDIC white book layout. Letter of invitation, instructions to bidders. I think there are 2 sections, section 2A and section 2B. The terms of reference, the technical proposal, and then a financial proposal. Obviously, section 4 and 5 are key components of putting your proposal together. Make sure that there are checklists available. Make sure that the checklists are there to help you make sure that all the necessary sections have been completed within section 4 and 5. So please look at that very carefully. There's the LHDA anti-corruption policy, as Makananelo referred to earlier on. It is included in the RFP documentation. Section 7, evaluation criteria, is really critical. You need to look at that very carefully. It spells out the points allocation for your organization and your experience, for your key staff, the composition of your key staff, your team composition, and then the margin of preference, which you need to look at carefully in order to make sure that your bid is compliant to what the RFP says. The contract forms are basically once the preferred bidder has been appointed, and the contract forms will form part of the contract documentation. The particular conditions, Section 9, as we said, it's basically the FIDIC White Book. Section 10, tax requirements. I think you just need to look at that because it's your responsibility. Just check Section 11 in terms of, let me just have a quick look. The tax registration, withholding tax, as well as invoice compliance and tax declaration. So just look at that as essential background to, if you are eventually going to be the successful bidder, you need to know what your tax liabilities are going to be. And Section 11 is essentially summarizing the remuneration and payment that will take place. Okay, I've got to move. Guidance on proposal preparation. It has been advertised in the print media in South Africa and Lesotho, and it's also on the LHDA website. Please respond to the instruction to bidders. Read it carefully, please. It's vital. A number of templates have been provided to you for those returnable forms that we want back, and that makes up the bulk of your proposal. Those templates are in the native format. They've been designed for a very specific reason. Do not use your own forms or templates. Use the ones that are available to you. And they essentially relate to Section 4 and Section 5. It's a quality-based evaluation, so the minimum pass is 70%. If you do not make that 70% for the technical evaluation, we don't even open your financial submission. If you don't meet the minimum pass of 70%, your bid will not proceed further in the evaluation. So it's important from that perspective to remember that the lowest price is not necessarily a guarantee that you will win the bid. You've got to make sure your technical evaluation is good, and that is the minimum. If you don't meet that minimum, you won't proceed any further. No late tenders will be accepted. I think we'll get to that. I think it's the 14th of February is the submission date at 2 o'clock. So 1 minute, 1 second past 2 o'clock, and we are not going to accept it. Please make sure you have sufficient time to cross the border if you come from South Africa to submit your bids in time. We are not going to accept late submissions. For any further information, you can then refer to the LHDA tender bulletin on the website. And then specific procurement requirements. This is mainly from Section 2B of the request for proposals. The closing date, as I said, is 14 February at 2 o'clock. So you've got about 3 months, I guess, to put your proposals together. Late submissions, again, will not be accepted and will be rejected. Comply with the format set out in the bid forms and the instructions in Section 2A of the RFP document. Your submission must be signed by a suitably authorized person and a power of attorney to be provided. Section 2A, there are a number of general clauses, starting from clause 3, 4, 5, and it carries on up to 9, and then against clause 35, which spells out the basis for bidders being ineligible or disqualified. I am pretty sure it will not be the case for any of you, but make sure you read those clauses carefully so that if there is a potential a disqualification concern, that you address it through your conflict of interest, etc. Submissions. Importantly, Section 2B, clause 6.1, this is a condition of award. So you've got to look at that carefully, and you need to meet that. Otherwise, your bid will be rejected. For Lesotho national consultants, not less than 10% For RSA Black-owned enterprises, not less than 20% of the RSA total. And then the RSA consultants total should not be less than 20%. If you have any queries on this, please submit them through the formal channels, and we will clarify that for you. But it's a condition of award. If you do not meet that, you are not going to be successful. Some more specific requirements. Section 2B, look at the specific details. We are now busy with the meeting, the pre-bid meeting. We are going to use a 2-envelope system, all packaged into one. So your technical proposal 4A to 4J will go in one envelope and sealed, and your financial proposal 5A to 5E goes into another sealed envelope, and you package that into one. The submission can either be on CD or online. What John, when he spoke this morning on the engineering one, I have not been involved with online submissions before, but he indicated that the online submission process appears to be working quite well. So, but it's up to you, either online submission or on a CD. The bid is in Maloti only, Maloti/Grant, same value. Validity of bids, 129 calendar days. You can ask for clarifications in writing up to 14 days prior to the submission of the submission closing date. Answers to clarifications, as you may know, will be sent to all potential bidders so that everyone is on the same page and have access to the same information. Once the bids have been submitted, there will be no communication from your side or from our side. You do not communicate with us. We will not communicate with you. We are not allowed to, by the way, unless once we're busy with the evaluation process, if there are specific clarifications that we need, then we can contact you, and that contact will be through formal mechanisms and proceed on that basis. But otherwise, there is no communication. The evaluation team, when they do their work, they sit in a closed room, and there's no outside or external interference or influence. So please, no communication once your bid is submitted. You can associate with other bidders in a JV or as a sub-consultant. We will post the list of bidders within 7 days after the opening. The place of negotiation with the preferred bidder will be confirmed. It's generally in Maseru. You have to state the availability of your key staff in your proposal. You need to state that they are available. Check what we specify in the documents, please. Key staff may only appear in one proposal. That's important. You cannot have a key staff member on 2 or 3 or 4 proposals. If they are, then your bid is going to be disqualified. Contract award information to be posted on the LHDA website. Oh, let's see, what else do we have? Section 7. When you run through it, you will see under the, let me just find it. Under 7.2 margin of preference, there's a table with a number of subtables or subsections A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H that defines these things for you. So Lesotho national firms, condition of award, not less than 10% of total cost. Black-owned South African companies, condition of award, not less than 20% of total RSA cost. Lesotho nationals will be a percentage of the total staff fee, as for RSA Black individuals, percentage of total fee. Women in key positions and persons with disabilities is number. So you can go and see if you have one women in key position, you will get a certain point allocated for that. And then youth, and youth is defined in the document, will also be a percentage of total time input. And then the last one under that 7.2, just check, is H, skills development. So just check that and make sure you you take the skills development component into account. Guidance on proposal preparation. See the website for general guidelines. Some of these go back quite a few years. We post these guidelines as we, the lessons learned. So go and check those. Information required. Include all information required. Use the templates. We keep on repeating it. Use the template forms. Eligibility, disqualification, demonstrate that you are eligible, as we said earlier on the minimum percentages for RSA, Lesotho, skills development and preferential procurement statement, anti-corruption policy statement and disclosure, and meet the document delivery requirements, as we said earlier on, how you should package this and the deadline for submission. Follow instructions to bidders carefully. Guidance on proposal preparation as far as project organization and experience goes. Again, that's in section 7.2, and it's covered under subsection A, B mainly. So please look at that carefully, because there are points that will be allocated for your financial capability, the general capability, the experience you have, and please specify the roles of team members and organizational structure. We clearly need to know who is going to do what. Experience in South Africa is also under it also falls under section 1 of section 7.1 in the table 1.2b. So look at that carefully, and please ensure that you show us what similar projects you've worked on in the region or elsewhere, and include projects in the data sheet. You will see that we've got a data sheets where you can indicate your experience. Populate those data sheets carefully. You've got to show that the experience on those, or the exposure experience on those data sheets, to the proposed team. So it's useless that you put in a project data sheet, but none of your team members actually worked on that project. So you've got to make that link. You've got to describe the services you've provided for that particular project. And you've got to show how the key staff links to those data sheets. Demonstrate full scope of services. We, as evaluators, do not guess what you did. So you've got to show exactly what the scope of work is that you undertook previously on other projects. And then something that's not always that easy, it's a bit of a pain, but we need client references as well. Key staff. I'm going to run through this very quickly. The high value that we have on key staff under section 7 reflects the priority that we believe these are the key inputs that we need. Use the CV template. Do not use your own CV. Use our CV template. Check it very carefully. Match the target criteria, meaning the scoring on your CV, the scoring is based on the CV. So the scoring in section 7 is based on the CV. Show the roles and responsibilities, not just project details on that CV. Academic requirements, where stated, are mandatory. All other ones will indicate the expected standard. CVs must be signed either by the individual or an authorized member of the team. We do check the CV data. It's not simply we scan it, we check it. We check the registration, etc. And if you are successful as the preferred bidder, we are going to quite likely want to interview all of the key staff. if you have a key staff member with a very low level of effort, we're going to probably mark that down, because the key staff, cannot have, let's say, like 3 days of input over a 1.5-year contract or 2-year contract. Importantly, we've seen that before. One rejected CV can actually cost you your bid. So look very carefully at the CVs, please. Price and preference are no help if you fail technically. Provide adequate resources, use the master program timelines. In fact, we will issue that as an addendum to you. You will see in your RFP, we've given you a very basic program for how long we think your contract, this contract 6039, will run. But we did not give you the master program for the entire engineering works for the scheme. So we will issue that to you under an addendum. We've covered that one. You are accountable for delivering the service. The bid price must include all parts of the terms of reference, not explicitly priced. And then, unfortunately, there could be penalties if the successful bidder fails to meet certain contractual commitments, program and preference. So just keep that in mind. Okay, site visit briefing. The site, this is the A1 road. Oh no, hang on. Yeah, it's A1 road. I'm just a bit confused with the way the map is. So that's the A1 road coming from Maseru, and then it will go up Moteng Pass, and then it carries on to Mogotlong. So if people are coming from South Africa, your best bet is probably coming via Fourisburg, through Caledonspoort border post, and then as you go towards Boetaboote, just before the town, there is a side road that you turn left, and you link up again with the A1, and then you travel all the way up to the top of Moteng Pass. As you get there to the top, for those who haven't been there, immediately when you get to the top, on the right-hand side, you'll see a big open area. There is a sort of an informal shop there as well, I believe. But it's a big open area where cars and trucks and buses stop. That is our meeting point. We have given you the coordinate, so in order to help you find that. We are commencing promptly at 11 o'clock on tomorrow. Yeah. We commence promptly at 11. So please make provision for your traveling time to be there before 11. We are leaving at 11. We are not leaving at 11:15. So it's important that you, for those who intend going, that you make a point of being there on time. Another point is there might be quite a number of vehicles, people with their vehicles participating. So please follow LHDA. Don't go off on your own, thinking you know the area, and then you are going to miss out on discussions. So follow the LHDA vehicles, keep in sight of our vehicles, and again, just to emphasize, drive safely. I'm done. Thank you, Mayor Makananelo. I think we can now open questions and answers. Use the team chat function. We will try and answer these questions, if there are any, as far as possible, but it will purely be for guidance. What we will do, as Mayor Makananelo said, all the questions raised now, we will put into a formal question and response document that will be shared with everyone. Only written statements are taken as binding, contractually binding. So verbal discussions here is purely for guidance. All written queries will be responded to formally and shared with all potential bidders. And any queries that you may have or requests for clarifications, send it to procurement at lhwp2pmu.co.ls. So your chat function, if in Teams, if you want to raise any questions. Thank you. I've kept you busy a bit long, but no. Okay. Over to participants, if there are any questions. I can't I see
Yeah,
the
Eddie,
question?
there is one question at the very bottom of the chat. The question is, apart from the footprint of proposed developments.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Yeah, that one. Please respond to that one. That's the only question so far.
I think this is sort of more of an engineering. Let me read it. Apart from the footprint of proposed developments, I imagine there will be substantial evacuation rock waste from the tunnel boring, which will need to be deposited somewhere. Do we have a plan for managing this? Whether it will impose relocation on settlements? Clearly, there is simply no way that evacuated rock will lead to the relocation of households. We're not going to dump rock on a village. That won't happen. The client will never allow that to happen. So whatever waste material is to be deposited wherever, it certainly will not be in areas that are currently inhabited by local people. I hope that answered the question. Did I read it correctly, Memakananelo?
Yes, Eddie, I think the response you've provided is accurate. The principle is to minimize resettlement as much as possible, so we can't relocate people because of that waste rock. Thank you.
Okay, I see. Ndari Mdawa, or Mr. or Miss Mdawarima has said thank you, answered. Okay, are there any other questions? I hope there are a few. Unless my presentation has been so good that you don't have any questions to ask.
That was the only question.
So far, yeah.
Oh, there's another one.
Is the consultant expected to create and implement a grievance mechanism? We, as the client, and Memakananelo, who drives this procedure quite effectively, we have a grievance mechanism. That grievance mechanism is applied all over on all the contracts. So no, you are not going to be required to create and implement a grievance mechanism, but you will need to prepare your own internal procedures to link up with the LHDA mechanism. For the contractors, which you are not going to be involved with currently, there are very specific interface activities between the engineering consultant, the contractor, as well as the LHDA mechanism. But no, you're not going to be required to implement your own mechanism. When you do, obviously, when you do your asset registration, people are going to come up with queries or complaints. You as the consultant need to, I mean, that's information coming from the field that you need to deal with. And quite often it will be an internal thing. So the person may say, but my husband was not available yet to finalize all the asset registration and I'm not happy. He must be part of the process. And you then need to address that. And I think in your monthly progress meetings, you show what issues were encountered in the field during that particular month and how it was addressed, where you require specific assistance from the client. Does that help, Julia? I think it's Julia. Looks like it. And then there's another question from Siame Matsotso. Can the support staff be included in more than one LHDA project tender? We will answer this formally. I think they can be in more than one, but we will formally respond to that. The key staff can only be in one bid, but support staff, there is no, or support staff or even other administrative staff, there is no There's no specification that they can only be in one bit. But we will formally reply to that. Any other things? There's a hand raised by Dumisani. Dumisani, I think you should type your question if you have one, please. Oh, I think Dumisani is struggling a bit, maybe pressing the wrong button. I don't see any more questions coming up.
It doesn't look like there are any more questions, so I think we have come to the end of the presentation. If you still if you have any further questions, please submit the queries to that email that has been shown on the screen, and then we will formally respond to each and every one of those. Otherwise, thank you very much, everyone, for attending the meeting, and see some of you tomorrow at 11.
And good luck. All the best.
And good luck, yes. Thank you.
Thank you all.